Now, have you ever thought of becoming your own boss?
Well, I sure have. Now, one person who could help you do just that is our next guest. He's Dr. Timothy Stearns, an expert in entrepreneurship who's helped many startup companies realize their dreams.
And he's here to share with us some tips on how to get that right now. Good morning, Tim. Welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. Singapore is such a beautiful place. I enjoy being back
Is this
here.
Oh, you've been here a few times
I've been
before?
here a few times, but
Yeah?
I always enjoy coming to the city. Well, California's not too bad, but it is a little bit colder.
Okay, you had some snow. Well, let's talk about starting up companies. You've helped many companies start up. I mean, what do you find is often the most difficult, perhaps, obstacle right at the start that sort of young entrepreneurs may not be aware of?
Well, I think young or old, I think the key is understanding what your product is. Many people come up with an idea, they get a product, but then they're not quite sure how to link that to a customer. And of course, if you don't have a customer, it doesn't matter how the product operates or how good it is. That to me is a fundamental challenge for anyone, because it's hard with a new product or a new idea to figure out who exactly wants it. And I try to remind entrepreneurs all the time that you're not the customer, that you have to rely on someone else to buy your product, even though you love your product.
And how do you test that out to see, will people dig your product?
Well, you spend a lot of time getting the product in front of customers to get feedback. Most people who come up with a product idea, they give it to their friends, and I always tell them, your friends are liars. They always tell you they love it, right? And so they're not the best source for giving you the truth about the product. So we try to get them into people who are willing to make a very honest response about it and to give feedback and try to determine whether or not that product is exactly where it needs to be in terms of coming into the marketplace.
So is that the first essential step, sort of knowing whether your product will work or not work in the market?
Absolutely. And the second, and I think this is vitally important, is that the individual needs to have the ability to pursue the entrepreneurial process with a great deal of dedication. Many people will tire from it very quickly.
Okay. And speaking of product, Facebook, I mean, that's a really good product, and the founder, Mark Zuckerberg.
We would all like to have a little bit of that. But, that's very unusual. We don't, probably 1 out of 100 companies that are launched and formed really are companies that try to move forward into a high-scale, high-value company. Most people try to build a company that'll give them a nice lifestyle, something that'll support them, provide education for the kids, and so on.
Well, how important is it for the person? Because I've known of entrepreneurs who are really passionate about what they do, but sometimes I look at them and think, this guy doesn't quite have the business acumen to run a business. Should there be two sides to an ideal entrepreneur? One that can look at the content, one that can also sell?
It's helpful if you know something about business, but you take someone like a Steve Jobs, is really not a business person, but he's a good person to cast a vision and put people around him that can move that business forward. So if you don't have strong business schools, you find the people who can do that. And that, to me, gets into the whole notion of innovative leadership, which I think is vitally important, is that any company, whether it's an entrepreneurial startup or a large-scale company, needs someone at the leadership level or people around them that understand how to be innovative, particularly as we move into the 21st century with all the globalization going on and the pressures that are coming about on markets and demands. It's become a much more competitive place.
So in other words, you don't necessarily have to be born with, entrepreneurship skills. If you surround yourself with the right people, you can still make things happen.
I think of it this way, is that you're the conductor, you're not the musician. You're the person who needs to find the best flutist, the best bassist, the best percussionist. If you're better than the person playing the music, you probably shouldn't be the conductor. You should be sitting in there playing the music. And so the leader of an organization, and this is part of that innovative process and entrepreneurial skill set, is the person who knows how to make good music out of the orchestra, out of people who have the competencies and skills to be great.
But that can be hard, because when you're first starting out, usually it's just I, me, and myself, and to sort of get a group of people so you're good at creating the software, creating the product, but to find the other people to kind of jump on the bandwagon with you might not be so easy.
Yeah, you're washing the bottles in the kitchen. You're starting off. I mean, that's part of the requirement for the stamina, and that's what you look for. Can you go through this process where you are going to, in the early stage, have to be everything? You're going to have to struggle. You'd better think it's fun, not work. Otherwise, you're not going to make it.
All right.
So just moving on from the beginning stages, say, you're getting a bit of results. How do you guide a company through you know, so that they reach the global level, say?
Well, we look for what their goals are. I mean, you always want to conform to what it is, the vision of the individual and what they're trying to accomplish. So you spend a lot of time with them trying to figure out, are you trying to turn this into a large global enterprise? Or are you just happy to have a nice convenient store on the corner here that's going to service a neighborhood? Or you want to do this simply in your bedroom at a computer selling product over the web?
Isn't that like thinking small? Isn't the whole objective is really to think big? And, you know, even if you have a small convenience store, so turn it into like a 7-Eleven or...
I tell people, think big first because you can scale back later. Right. It's hard to think small and scale up. And so at the beginning stage, you want to get a vision of what the potential is. And then you can come down and say, okay, I'm happy, or this is where I want to be. I don't want to put that extra energy, extra effort, the harder labor to try to scale it up.
So you got to have an end goal in sight, in a sense. You got to know what's at the end of the rainbow, so to speak, and then decide where along the rainbow you decide to stop.
You as the individual have to know where you're going. Because otherwise, you'll come up with confused decisions.
Well, I guess that's what often happens, because as you're planning along the way, you think, well, maybe we can try doing this, and then, but things keep changing all the time.
You know, part of the challenge for me and what we work hard on is trying to get into the educational process, you know, entrepreneurial skill development. In fact, where we are in California, we've created what we call the Innovative Pathway. And the Innovative Pathways, we go into elementary schools, secondary schools, technical schools, and colleges, and we try to give people, as they move through this pathway, the skill sets that they need to be successful. And we think that's important to become kind of an innovative leader in the future.
Okay. And I suppose just very, very quickly, just before we wrap up, if let's say I want to start a business tomorrow or next week, what are the 3 fundamental things that I need to know before I embark?
Are you willing to make the commitment? Do you have a good idea and you've already tested the idea that people want it? And then thirdly, do you have the potential to gather money to kind of support that business and grow it?
Well, thank you, Tim, for speaking with us this morning. Dr. Timothy Stearns, a professor of entrepreneurship, just sharing with us some tips on how to become a successful and innovative entrepreneur. And that's why I'm not one, because I'm a scaredy cat. I'm pretty comfortable here.
Yeah, I don't even like to gamble and lose $10.
Oh, okay.
All right, we're going to head off for a short break, but we'll be back in 2 minutes. Stay tuned.
See you then.